Welcome everybody on live stream to today's workshop, the 6th Kids Knowledge Seekers Workshop of the Keshe Foundation. And today, once again, we'll be in contact with Mr. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation at the Spaceship Institute. And he'll be showing us and describing some of the ways the universe works in a way that child in us can understand, and we can progress in our knowledge. Okay, let's switch over to Mr. Keshe now. He's ready to go with his magic pad of wonders there, and see it ready to go. So, Mr. Keshe, are you there?
Yes. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good everything, whatever, wherever you are. I think we need Kevin to introduce to us what he wants to talk about this week. That will follow the title of the topic he's chosen. What is your dream this week, Mr. Kevin Kavanagh?
Hello, this is Keyvan Devani. Mr. Keshe, in one of the first workshops, you mentioned that the fruits and the plants and everything we eat, that is, those that are closer to the Earth, absorb more of the magnetic gravitational fields of the Earth. Is that right? Do I say that? Okay. And the fruits that hang on the tree absorb more of the, let's say, atmosphere and whatever is beyond that atmosphere of those magnetic gravitational fields. So we need both for our energy, for nourishment, to be alive, to stay alive. Now, I have a lot of questions today, but I want to resolve that for myself, because you always talk about vegetarians, and I guess you imply also the vegans who don't eat any animal-based food. I need to clarify that for me, from a scientific plasmatic point of view, from you.
Are you vegetarian or are you vegan?
I'm vegan for 5 years, and I've never been, healthier like now. And I just want to know, do we really need animal products or meat to stay healthy and alive?
Okay. Now you have to explain to the children the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan.
Okay,
then they know what it is. They think you are just a wagon going around. You got to explain what a vegan is and what is the vegetarian.
Yeah, for sure. Well, vegetarians, they don't eat any meat, but they do eat milk products, milk, cheese, but not any meat. Or any, I guess there are also some vegetarians who eat fish, but no meat. So there are different kinds of vegetarians.
You mean red or white meat?
For me, as a vegan, I don't eat any. I don't eat any meat, fish, or any type of animal. No milk, no cheese, no eggs. And vegetarians they do eat eggs, cheese, and milk. So I think this is the simple explanation to make a difference between vegetarians and vegans.
Okay. Now, so you eat vegetables, but you don't eat milk and yogurt and egg.
Exactly. I eat everything that's plant-based. That comes from the plant.
Okay. It means you like different kind of animals.
Yes,
that's all it means.
Yeah.
The thing is, you eat wheat, you eat lettuce, you eat tomatoes, you eat carrots, I presume, potatoes, and these are all animals. But they don't walk. To you, an animal or a product from an animal is when it's walked, is kept, is fed, and it says ma or says ba, and then that's it. or it goes chick chick. But if you look at the wheat, there is 50, 60, 70% of protein in it. And protein is live, is an entity. Protein means 4 little chops called nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen working together. So if this is in red color, you call it meat, is no for you. But if it is in a brown color and is called whole wheat bread loaf, is yes. How can you be how can you be somebody who's not touching protein? It's exactly the same. It's just you choose which type of protein you need. Without protein, your body dies. Vitamins, minerals, you all take. You just, if you can go live on the internet now and just put bread and content of the protein in the wheat. It's just we as human decide which type of animals we like to eat. And we give a different name. A vegetation, a wheat, any kind of living animal, because it grows. And in the human and animal life, we walk horizontally. The vegetation walk vertically. You try to walk off the wall, on the wall. You can't do, but the vegetations do. That's the way they walk. You have chosen not to eat anything which is from horizontal walking creatures, but you eat what goes vertical. So it's the choice. I don't call you vegan, I don't call you vegetarian. I call you horizontal eaters or vertical eaters. And in so many ways, without protein, you cannot survive. The body finds a way because your body is made. If you eat potatoes or sugar, this is a CH, it's just for energy. But any other products, more or less, any other vegetation, more or less, any fruit, more or less, carries certain amount of protein. So you decide you don't like a white meat, but you decide you like a white flour rice. So that's the change of name. In fact, you cannot live. Human body is made of protein, what we call amino acid base, and without it, it cannot survive because it needs it to nourish equal to equal. Your body, your muscle has protein and it's got the amino acid, which has the combination of NHC. So when you eat white bread, the plasmatic magnetic field of each one interacts with similarity because it's easier. You balance it off. And because our body is made of a combination of amino acids, we need varieties of protein that are in tune, in balanced plasmatic magnetic gravitational field with what is in the body. There is a huge problem with the people who have been brought up in a vegetarian family and the ones who've been brought up in a meat-eating family. Because if you're a meat eater and you decide to become a vegetarian tomorrow, You're moving from one combination, let's say white bread, protein, to meat or vice versa. So in your body, if it's in one go, the body has to adapt. And this adaptation means it has to take something from somewhere or give something to somewhere in the body to be able to replicate that the protein of the meat gets the same as protein strength of the meat protein than the vegetable or than anything else. So the height, the level, the distance of a plant from the ground is very much why you eat chicken, lamb, a cow, or a kangaroo. It's the same. Different animals being on a four-legged walking horizontally or a plant going vertically, according to their height, absorb the same kind of energy from their environment. There is a reason why all the animals are not the height of a chicken, and all the vegetation are not the height of an apple tree. This is what the world of science and the humanity has to understand. Why we use different kind of animals, why we consume different kind of food, why we consume different kind of fruit and vegetation. Why man for centuries was a root eater? Because in root we find certain amount of energies which we need for fast digestion. The whole process of human progress, human intelligence, change of human intelligence over the centuries has been, over actually millions of years, has been the adoption in how he consumes protein. When we used to eat grain, just grow grain and just wet them or eat them dry, the intelligence wasn't as high as today. When the man used to eat meat raw as he captured and killed the animals, the birds or whatever, was not the same. The reason is very simple. This is a phenomenon you can go and check. For example, if you ate a kilo of meat, you needed like, let's say 10 hours to digest this meat in your stomach for a lot of energy to be used to, first of all, boil it, cook it, dissolve it, whatever you want to call it. And then this energy was released slowly over time. That's why man became meat eater, because he could eat in one go and last longer. Then when we found the fire, all we did, we changed the stomach of the man with a cooking pot. Instead of cooking in our stomach and energy taking from the body to open up the structure of the meat that we can digest this energy, now we change the cooking pot to the fire and a pot. We put the meat in the pot. The cooking time went from the fire, the energy from inside of our body comes from the fire in the pot, and so the meat was already softened, the rice was already softened, wheat was already softened. So when we ate it, we got the full nourishment without putting energy into it, because the energy was put in by cooking process. And this surplus of energy which we received was over millions of years used to become the intelligence of the man. Because we had more energy, more plasma, more availability which was a surplus and will not go in the body as fat. So we grew in intelligence because we had less, we needed less to do, less hunting, but absorb more energy. So now, if you're a vegan, instead of you putting a cow in the pot, you put wheat in the pot. But you still go through the same process of opening up the protein that when it comes into your stomach is easier to break up the energy and be absorbed by the body. So the height of the vegetable, the short one, is like a chicken. The ones which you pick up, beans or whatever, is like a cow. And that's the difference. When you're higher, you absorb different energies which your body needs. So this is why we live this kind of lives, why the human race has evolved in this way. As I said in the other teachings, the oxygen, the air in the atmosphere of this planet is not all the same oxygen. We gave it the oxygen as a name, but in energy, plasmatic gravitational field as a plasma energy is a size of, let's say, an apple to a size of a huge watermelon. They're all fruits. And it's the same with the oxygen. They're all oxygen. They're all hydrogen. They're all nitrogen. But each nitrogen has a different strength and it matches with the same magnetic gravitational field of the carbon and others of the four to make the amino acid. When you say you're a vegan, you're not supposed to cook. And if you are in a way a vegan that does not cook any food and you eat raw, you find out these kind of people are very, very placid, very calm. They find peace with themselves. It's very simple. Why you're happy? Why you become content? Because you don't receive the extra energy which comes from protein of the animal, which is of the highest order gravitational magnetic field of what they call it, protein. And because you don't have that energy, you don't have the strength to be active as what they call it, meat eaters. Gradually over time, you find the body adapts to what it receives. The pleasantness, the calmness, the comfort, the joy of being not in a rush is actually comes from the lack of energy available in full spectrum of what the muscle tissue needs. I'll always give an example. Us, Keyvan is Iranian as well, we come from the culture of the Middle East and Central Asia. Iran, Afghanistan, India, and in the process of past 1,000 years, 1,500 years, we used to be very calm and very placid people because, first of all, meat was part of our order of food, but we were more vegetarian, we were eating more roots and wheat. By coming of the Islam in this area, and because Arabs did not have so much access to meat as was available in the Middle East and around Iran and Central Asia, they became so meat eaters that in the process became part of the structure of the life of what we call Muslims. But the main part of Iran and the other side, the Zoroastrians and the Hindus, stayed vegetarians. And these are all brothers and sisters and cousins. They were not the strangers. Half became one kind of belief and the other one became the other kind of belief. What happened after 1400 years? because of the consumption of the huge consumption of meat and the aggression of being killing and watching an animal that you're more superior, so you're more powerful, the feature of the brothers from the same race changed. So much so that now what is in past 50, 60 years, the ones who became the meat eaters are mainly meat eaters and in one kind of belief, look totally different than the rest of the nation. So they made two nations, Pakistan and India. The vegetarians line of very much vegan, but not vegans, but vegetarians, than the pure meat eaters as a main line of energies consumption. When you go to Pakistan and you see the Indians, even they used to be brothers and cousins and uncles, they have totally different feature because of the consumption of the energy and the vastness of the energy they use. And so because you have less energy, you absorb more lower level amino acids from the proteins from vegetables, you find you behave the same because there's not much enough energy to be aggressive. So you become placid. War is the last option, where when you leave and use so much meat, so much energy, fighting is the first option. So it brings different kind of approach, different kind of mentality, and then you will see how in a different kind of cultures we use different what we call herbs according to infections which are available in the area. You like mint? Mint is a herb. You like different kind of vegetables. These are what was needed to allow the human race to survive the infections in the time and the present. So when you say what kind of I'm a vegan, I tell you you're a vertical eater. You still eat animals. In the lab here, when we run a test and the very first bottle reactors were made, and they were string long as a height, what are called the vertical reactors or vertical lines. On the top we see a very soft hexagonal vegetation protein. In the containers, when we have wires twisted together and we compact the energy, we see thick fat on top of the container, very much like animal fat. So either way you want to eat, vertical or horizontal, you're still protein eater and you still eat live entities.
Okay.
Let me explain to you, if you can eat a stone, dust, and what do you call it, metals, then you're a true non-animal eater. But I don't know many people who can eat stones and stay alive. So we have to understand, just because we don't see blood and just because we don't hear bah, the trees talk, the plants talk, they communicate with each other, they have a life, and they are part of the structure of the living entities, and they have a soul too. And this is very important. Bless the food you eat, doesn't matter in what section it comes, but not pretend to bless, but be open to receive the soul as much as you are prepared to give the soul. Now you understand the difference. You're still a protein eater and you still eat non-walking animals, vertically walking. I hope I've explained it in detail, and sorry about your vegan. I didn't want to go, but but you have to realize something. I always give this warning. I give this warning to a lot of people, especially the youngsters, as it's become fashionable to become vegetarian. I don't want to eat meat. If you want to become vegetarian, or if you have become vegetarian, plan it over 10 to 15 years, 20 years. If you wake up one morning and says, today I don't want to eat meat because it's fashionable, my boyfriend will love me more, you're heading for a disaster which you cannot even imagine. The body of you over centuries, through your parents, through your grandparents, through your ancestors, have changed its usage to a meat protein level. And then you decide not to do it, then you sit in exactly like sitting in a car, driving down the road at 200 kilometers an hour, and you decide, everybody else is going at 100 kilometers, I decide to stop, you put the brake on, what's going to happen? You're going to crash into the wall, you're going to swing around, or you crash into other cars, and it's you who gets hurt. You cannot put sudden stop on a process which has gone for thousands of years in your body. Because your body is collection of the information from past generations. So if any of the youngsters decide to become vegetarian, understand vegetables are still animals. They are beings, alive, they breathe. And secondly, if you want to change from one protein consumption to another, start with 2 days a month. These 2 days, I don't eat any meat. After a year, 2 years, increase it to 3 days a month, 4 days a month. And then plan it after 4 or 5 years into 1 week a month, I don't eat meat. And then in 2 weeks after, the further you go down, you can increase it. Then the body adapts and it allows no damage to be done. Because to you there is no damage, I feel better. But when you feel better, all the organs have to be reprogrammed. All the organs have to be, and the rush reprogramming is all a mess programming. When you organize, it's just like when you go to a shop. You pick very slowly what you want, you know what you shopped. If you're running and took whatever, you don't know then what you got in your basket. And this is a recipe for a lot of psychological depression, psychological behavior, because now everything has to be reorganized from the emotional part of the brain to the physical part. So, if you decide to change the habit of eating different animals, you call it plants or cow. If you go from one side to another or vice versa, plan it over time. Then you find out the body accepts, you can do the job correctly, and at the end of the line, you do not come with mental, psychological, physical, and emotional, and loads of other problems. I always say, to be a proper vegetarian or vegan or whatever, it should take 3 generations. The 3rd generation will be a true vegetarian or vegan, or vice versa. Oh, ask me a question. What's your question?
Well, Mr. Keshe, you know my question where it is leading to. You know probably why most people turn vegetarian or vegan. It's because of the, you know, the whole torture and killing and the whole pain issues that are associated in the mass slaughtering.
Have you ever heard the cry of an apple when you pick it off a tree?
That's what was going.
Ever heard?
Question. Yeah.
Have you ever heard the pain of a lettuce when you cut it off its roots?
Okay, so you're saying a plant or a fruit has feels the pain, right? I mean, is that?
Of course, they're being, they're plasmas, they interact.
But I thought it's a certain. Okay, that's on a matter level. I know
It's a school of thought how we justify our behavior.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it is whatever which is we eat is a combination of plasmas and comes from a living entity. So it must be living. It depends on the percentage of the water content in it. We call it a dry when there is less water in it, but it's still active. It's still a plasma. Don't forget, vegetations are in a GANS state as much as the human body. There is no difference. So when you have a herb, according to the height from the ground, you absorb different energies. If you are closer to the ground, you absorb most of the energy from the earth. Because the minerals of the earth are connected to your body. The further you are away from the surface of the earth, you are more made and absorb the energy from the environment where your original life protein came from. Because the life on this planet comes from the interaction of the materials above, which is in the atmosphere, coming together to make the protein, and then when they link with the plasma of the minerals of the planet, they lead to creation of intelligent and active life. Doesn't matter intelligence called a plant or called an animal or called a human. Because they have enough intelligence to replicate themselves, look after themselves, know when they grow, when they're to sleep, which way to turn to the sun. So all this needs intelligence. It's not just stand in a field full of sunflowers and watch them all follow the sun. You won't do that, but they do, because they have the intelligence. This is what I need to do to absorb as much as I can. So if a plant goes up a wall and knows which way to go, and then you call it afterwards, okay, we call it a grape tree or bush or whatever, this has an intelligence, otherwise it just doesn't happen. Just because you don't hear its noise, it doesn't mean it doesn't live. And according to the height where it can absorb most of what it needs, it turns out to be how and where the fruit comes from. Now, are you a vegetarian or are you vegan, or are you still eating animals but in different names? Notice something. A lot of plants, when you cut them, you see a juice coming at them, or some of them have a white sap. This is the blood of the animal. It's the blood of the plant. Just because it's not red, it doesn't mean it's not the line of its life. It's through what it communicates, receives, nourishes itself, and lives.
Okay.
This is what the humanity have to understand. The best thing is, in the space, you absorb energy without anything. Then we call them plasma eaters, but that's still to come.
Okay. Mm.
So, any other question?
So a plant, because okay, I always felt, a plant has an intelligence or a soul, but can it suffer? Does it have pain? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Of course.
Is that the same?
Of course it does. Of course it does. How can it not? It has a neural system. Because it's got a carbon in it, it means it communicates. When it's hot, it shivers. When it's cold, it dies, it shuts off. How can it not have a feeling? It goes to sleep the way you go and I go to sleep. But we choose to go to sleep 8 hours, 365 hours a year. That puts all the 8 hours together and it sleeps half of the year, or 4 months of the year. If you add up the total sleep time of a plant and a human being, is exactly the same. Take when the trees lose their leaves, November, around December. January, February, and March they regrow. That's, let's say, 1/3 of the life. 1/3 of the year or so, we don't see them with any plants. We say they are stopped, they are in hibernation. count your own life, you sleep 8 hours a day. So in fact, you sleep 4 months of the year as well. When you have a carbon, plasmatic magnetic connection, it means you communicate, it means you survive, it means you live, and it means you make decisions. So of course they feel pain. The only thing is they don't go, ah! But actually, if you listen, they do go out.
Okay, my whole concept of being vegan, I think, is a little bit upside down now. But okay. So on the other space,
no, because we have to understand, it's not putting anybody wrong. It's the preference of the habit. It's very much, especially, let's say, put it this way, if you lived in Europe and then suddenly you go and live, let's say, in India or China, and you have no access to anything which you are used to in Europe. You have to adopt the culture, you have to adopt the food, eat what is eaten in the environment of where you live. You find out a lot of problems. First of all, the biggest problem will be psychological, because you don't like to eat, let's say, dog. To you, eating dog is impossible, because in the West we cuddle them, we love them, and now you got to eat them. And now there you have no choice. Dog is on the menu every day. What do you want to do? I've been in that position. I'm going to tell you something which I haven't. They were ashamed to tell me in South Korea, that they eat dogs because they have a special restaurant, they eat dog. But it's part of their culture. So if you don't have a choice and you got to eat it, what's going to happen? Psychological changes. We will see visible psychological changes. The same thing happens when you go from a meat eater to a vegetarian or vegan. You're very happy, you're very calm. It's understood, because you don't have the energy to run anyway. Unless you find supplement with a high energy to take it. This is, I warn children all the time, because it's become fashionable to be vegetarian. Overnight, I don't want to eat meat. I don't want to see blood. And then, do you know what's funny thing? They eat as much vegetables because they are vertical growers, and they say it's nothing, I can't see it growing, it doesn't cry. This is what we have to understand and teach. There is a problem with the youngsters, because we run these programs for young children. Bulimic and anorexia comes as part of the change of the eating habit. Because when you change suddenly from one habit to another and the stomach cannot accept, then you have to make accommodations for it. Then the stomach digestion system has to adjust. Then anorexia or bulimia, when you put your fingers in your mouth and you vomit whatever you've eaten, which the kings used to do for years, they could eat more. It gives you what we call chipmunk jigs. And you think nobody can see it. When I walk down the street, I know which girl playing the game of I'm a vegetarian and eating in the restaurant half a plate and going back in the, in the toilet and trying to vomit. Because the body has to be slim to fit the friends. These are all the games you don't need to play with your body. Because being a vegetarian is fashionable for future psychological problems at the moment. Any other question?
So hopefully when we're in space, we are exclusively...
We give you plenty of gans to eat. We give you plenty of ganses to eat. They still have life. You still have to respect their life. But on the other hand, it's no bleeding and no crying. Mm. You absorb what you need and you give it. Mm-hmm. We're going to sell very soon plasma reactors food menu. Huh? I think that's what you're asking. You got to wait about 10, 20 years for that.
We're old by then.
Yeah, but you have to understand, because the children have to realize, to live a normal life, you need certain amount of energy. This energy has to be added to the body every day at a certain level for life, for body to be healthy. If you take from somewhere from it, it has to find it somewhere else to keep its balance. And if it cannot find it, then the body goes inwardly to take from what it is inside stored to use it. And when the storage finishes, the diseases start. This is very important for especially youth to understand. There is nothing wrong with changing from one menu table to another. But understand, if you change, you have to change over a long term that the body can adjust to the new type of protein. What's our time? Have we passed our 40 minutes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Just past the 40-minute mark, yes.
This was very nice, Kevin, because this is something I think we have to bring back to the children all the time.
Yeah, it's important to me also. Yeah.
That is, just because you don't see the growth of the plasma in the way you've been brought up, it does not mean it exists. As I say, in the space technology, we come across new animals and new structures, we call them animals or whatever, and they're not all edible. They're friends. You don't eat your friends. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Keshe. Awesome. Thank you.
And as usual, we meet next tomorrow morning in 12 hours time for the adults and see what kind of meat they like to eat.
Yes, maybe we'll see exactly what, I'm sure this topic will come up in several workshops. I could see it would be of interest to many people.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Have a nice evening. Or
Thank
good
you.
morning
Okay.
to you, wherever you woke up. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe, and thank you, Davin.
Bye.
Thank you. Vince, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
And that brings to a close the 6th Kids Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Thanks to everybody for attending, and goodbye for now.
Can yogurt and egg.
Exactly. I eat everything that's plant-based.
No, no.
That comes from the plant.
Okay. It means you like different kind of animals.
Yes.
That's all it means.
Yeah.
The thing is, you eat wheat, you eat lettuce, you eat tomatoes, you eat carrots, I presume, potatoes, and these are all animals, but they don't walk. To you, an animal or a product from an animal is when it's walked, is kept, is fed, and it says ma or says ba, and then that's it. Or it goes chick chick. But if you look at the wheat, there is 50, 60, 70% of protein in it. And protein is live, is an entity. Protein means 4 little chops called...
Mr. Keshe, in one of the first workshops, you mentioned that the fruits and the plants and everything we eat, that is, those that are closer to the Earth, absorb more of the magnetic gravitational fields of the Earth. Is that right? Do I say that? Okay. And the fruits that hang on the tree absorb more of the, let's say, atmosphere and whatever is beyond that atmosphere of those magnetic gravitational fields. So we need both for our energy for nourishment to be alive, to stay alive. Now, I mean, I have a lot of questions today, but I want to resolve that for myself because you always talk about vegetarians, and I guess you imply also the vegans who don't eat any animal-based food. I need to clarify that for me, from a scientific plasmatic point of view, from you.
Are you vegetarian or are you vegan?
I'm vegan for 5 years, and I've never been, healthier like now. And I just want to know, do we really need animal products or meat to stay healthy?
Welcome everybody on live stream to today's workshop, the 6 Kids Knowledge Seekers workshop of the Keshe Foundation. And today, once again, we'll be in contact with Mr. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation at the Spaceship Institute. And he'll be showing us and describing some of the ways the universe works in a way that the child in us can understand, and we can progress in our knowledge. Okay, let's switch over to Mr. Keshe now. He's ready to go with his magic pad of wonders there, and see it ready to go. So, Mr. Keshe, are you there?
Yes. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good everything, wherever you are. I think we need Kevin to introduce to us what he wants to talk about this week. That will follow the title of the topic he's chosen. What is your dream this week, Mr. Kevin Kavanagh?
Hello, this is Keyvan Devani, and alive.
Okay, now you have to explain to the children the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan.
Okay, the
then
vegetarian.
They know what it is. They think you are just a wagon going around. You got to explain what a vegan is and what is the vegetarian.
Yeah, for sure. Well, vegetarians, they don't eat any meat, but they do eat milk products, milk, cheese, but not any meat or any. I guess there are also some vegetarians who eat fish, but no meat. So there are different kinds of vegetarians.
You mean red or white meat?
For me, I mean, as a vegan, I don't eat any. I don't eat any meat, fish, or any type of animal. No milk, no cheese, no eggs. And vegetarians they do eat eggs, cheese, and milk. So I think this is the simple explanation to make a difference between vegetarians and vegans.
Okay, now, so you eat vegetables, but you don't eat milk, nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen working together. So, if this is in red color, you call it meat, is no for you. But if it is in a brown color and is called whole wheat bread loaf, is yes. How can you be a vegan? How can you be somebody who's not touching protein? It's exactly the same. It's just you choose which type of protein you need. Without protein, your body dies. Vitamins, minerals, you all take. You just, if you can go live on the internet now and just put bread and content of the protein in the wheat. It's just we as human decide which type of animals we like to eat. And we give a different name. A vegetation, a wheat, any kind of living animal, because it